Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co-host here, Ashton, with my awesome co-host, Zach. It is in the middle of the winter season, the last week of the NFL regular season, and potentially a big flurry, a big winter storm here, and that's why we are recording on Sunday, which we normally do not do. So thank you for that, Zach. But I heard you guys had a lot of fun out in the snow. How are you feeling? How are you doing after this Week 18 loss?
Yeah, being part of the East Coast Rams Midwest lifestyle, we get snow unlike our California counterparts. Yeah, we've got about 5, 6 inches right now, and it's still going to be coming down for the next 12 hours. So we should be getting quite a bit of snow. But yeah, everything's going great. We wrapped up the season, the regular season, and get to move on to the playoffs. So can't be any more happier than that.
Yes, and guys, we plan on trying to do another show here before the playoff game. And how we're gonna kind of structure this episode will kind of give a brief breakdown, talk about the Week 18 game, and split that between talking about that game and then some rankings or grades. We'll give kind of regular season grades to this roster and to your 2024 Rams for the offense for this episode. In the next episode, we'll do the defense. Uh, News is the only news we have going out of this game, Zach, is that my boy Corm, he is hurt and he will not be returning for the rest of the playoffs. And we can kind of pivot that news also into the game because I feel like a big moment in this game was when Corum was hurt. And I felt like a rushing attack kind of uh, just lost a little bit of edge. Ronnie Rivers is good for a third string running back, but we kind of felt a little bit pain on the ground without being able to exploit some gaps there.
I think the unfortunate part is we didn't get to really see much of Blake Corum. I mean, he only had 2 carries for
Yeah.
10 yards, so we don't know how explosive maybe he could have been. I probably would disagree a little bit. I think Ronnie Rivers did a pretty good job under that. 12 carries for 48 yards, averaging about 4 yards a carry. Kind of filling in kind of that Kyron Williams role. They're all three very similar in their styles of play. Um, but yeah, losing Blake Corum for the season, to a fractured arm is nothing that you definitely don't want to see it. And this is kind of a reason why the Rams wanted to rest their starters. They wanted to avoid this situation with with a Kyron Williams, with a Cooper Kupp, a Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford. And so, for a lot of fans who really wanted to see their starters have more of a role, this is some of those reasons why you may want to hold them out on a game that really doesn't mean a whole lot. They're already in the division. They already clinch home field advantage, at least for one game. So they're in all reality, this was probably a good move, but it does suck for Corum. It kind of sucks going into the playoffs, not having that 1-2 punch with Kyron and Blake.
Yeah, and let's keep on talking about the game and at least the seeding aspect. I'm one of those people, I think the seeding matters, especially if you get past the first round, because it potentially buys you at least not having to play the 1 seed. Now, it is what it is. You're going to have to play tough teams. If this team's going to go to Super Bowl, they're going to have to beat good teams. Kind of like in 21. Outside that Cardinals team, which kind of lost some steam, they beat 3 heavyweight teams back to back to get that Super Bowl ring. So, the Vikings and Lions are playing right now. We're going to have to face one of them. And that's going to be a tough game either way. Both teams are good. But let's be fair to our team and the backups mostly. I would say it's like 80% of the time it was the backup, second string, third string. They should have won this game. They gave Seattle run for their money. And I think the reason why I said Corum going out was a big deal was, yeah, Ronnie Rivers had some solid runs here and there, but when it came down to the game on 3rd and 2nd and 4th and 2nd, they didn't run in the red zone. And they almost always do that with Kyron at least once. And I think that's a testament to they didn't have faith in Ronnie Rivers. They had more faith in Jimmy G, which was mixed results. I would say he was decent the game,
Yeah,
but
I
for the
mean,
most part, he had some bad misses. And you see why he's
he is a backup. I mean, I'm not the Jimmy G fan. We all know this. I'm not a Jimmy G supporter, but in this game, you look at it, he hasn't played all season. And he comes into this game 27 for 41, which is a lot of throws. I mean, 41 attempts is a lot for anybody, but 334 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have that one pick. And, so he had an okay game. He was sacked 3 times, but I give him, for being a backup, for waiting until week 18 to actually play the game. I think he did a pretty darn good job, especially having that offensive line, which was, again, other than Steve Avila, was all backup. So I think it was fine. I think he did admirable for this. And like you said, they should have won this game. Unfortunately, they did not. It was on the final play was probably on one of Jimmy G's worst throws. It was a very low throw. But
he was open.
other than that, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The Rams did lose, 25-30. So, they put up points. Hey, they put up more points than the Rams have almost put together over the last 3 weeks. Offense.
Yeah, but
direction.
I almost feel like our full offense blows that Seahawks team out. Like, I think it's pretty clear. The boys were on a mission today, and even though they lost, they played great. I'll give credit to the Seahawks. I thought Julian Love was playing out of his mind. He was the only person in that Seattle backfield doing anything to stop us.
And he was making plays.
Great game.
Yeah, I mean, he got in there several times, just deflecting the ball away right at the right time. A lot of other players would have probably got a foul on that for trying to, tug on Demarcus Robinson or any of the other guys he was tracking, and he didn't. All of his plays were clean as far as blocking that. So kudos to Love. He played a great game.
Yeah. So moving to the defense, which was hit or miss. Now, most of our starting D line did not play a majority of the game. I would like to see the snap counts, but I feel like only on 3rd downs you saw Verse and like Fisk and the big 3, so to say. What do you make of the defense and like Kobe Durant having an up and down game? And also kind of seeing a little bit more of Emmanuel Forbes. And it looked like growing pains.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it was. I mean, again, you come back with, Kobe Durant, he wasn't able to play or he didn't play over the last 3 weeks, whether that's because of injury or because of, Witherspoon just had, the hot hand at the time, so they kept playing him. It's just one of those things where I think, again, you're getting back into the groove. And I think, yes, I agree. He had early in the game, he was a little rough, but he seemed to make up for that in the second half of the game. So I think he found his groove as he was getting back into the rhythm of a real game.
Yeah, Durant and Witherspoon both gave up. I wouldn't say they were terrible touchdowns because they were like nearby. It was just not good snaps by either of them. And 3rd down was surprisingly really bad for the Rams, stopping the Seahawks. Now Seahawks kind of pulled out all the stops. They had all the starters. They had all the trick plays. They had really very close lateral that, I don't think it was going forward, but again, it's one of those things where you're playing a team that is going to do anything to win just to get one over on you, and you're playing with the arm tied behind your back, and I would say it was mixed results. I'm trying to think of some of the people who kind of stood out. Dejuan Johnson, I thought him and Bobby Brown had good games, not great. At times, it was like hit or miss with stopping the run. They were either getting 15, 16-yard chunks or none at all. But it was kind of mixed results there. And same thing with kind of the passing game. It was a very weird game by the defense.
It was. That's just because they were also trying to rotate in. They were rotating in their starters, because they couldn't rest all the starters, and so in a lot of the young defense, they couldn't sit them out, so they were rotating them in. Obviously, Fisk got in there, and he did get a good sack. He got his 9th sack of the game, which was awesome. And so I think that was it. I think it was just more of the rotational pieces that kept happening that kind of led to some of the defensive struggles a bit. So again, this game I'm not super concerned about again because it's week 18. There wasn't really a whole like I know seeding is important, but you think about it, whether honestly to me, I would probably be almost more afraid to go up against the Eagles than I would be against the Vikings or the Lions, even if we have to go back and play either of those at home. It's one of those things where I could go either way with that one. You go in the 3rd seed and you may have to go face the 2nd seed, which then would be the Eagles. And I don't know. So all around, I think it didn't really matter. I think the Rams can beat anybody as long as they're, they put their best foot forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's kind of pivot to the offense and more general offense with this game. Man, it sucks not being able to see Corum. I said my 2 big keys if they were going to win this game was getting Corum going and get Whittington going. Now, Corum got hurt. That happens. But, man, Whittington, he looks so good. We got to get this guy more snaps next year.
I know. I was really hoping he was going to get a touchdown. I was really hoping he was going to get a touchdown this game.
He got close.
He did get close. I mean, shoot, if it wasn't for Love, we mentioned that he would have easily had a touchdown after that beautiful pass by Jimmy G. Yeah, I mean, the offense was just great. I mean, you look at it, you had Jordan Whittington who had he had 3 catches for 86 yards. Demarcus Robinson had 3 catches for 72 yards. I mean, these are chunk plays that we have been waiting for. Tyler Higbee, 5 receptions for 46 yards. Tutu Atwell, 5 receptions for 37 yards. Like, we were spreading the ball out. We were doing things sneakily. We were doing jet sweeps. We were getting the ball to Whittington. We were doing things that I feel like we have been wanting them to do with our core group, and we haven't seen that up and for a while now, probably since the Bills game.
Yeah, I thought the play calls for 3rd and 4th down on that last drive were not good, personally. It's easy to question it now because on 4th down he was open. It was just a bad throw. Like, he wasn't pressured or anything like that. So you could maybe say the play call. I just think a safer play on 3rd down was like a jet sweep or something like that. I felt like we were gashing them the entire game with those direct snap or like some of that motion sweeps and stuff like that. Maybe a bubble screen. We tried that once, didn't work, and he didn't do it all rest of the game. So a part of it was, we got a lot of big chunk plays. Some of that was kind of broken coverage, I believe, from the Seahawks' point of view. But, it was a weird game by Jim G because he made some really good throws and then, like, some really bad – that pick was bad. That was just not layered. Really he didn't see, like, how can you not see the defender right there?
So, yeah, I mean, when you watch it in real time, it almost looks like he threw it directly to them.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he didn't think anyone was there, and I'm guessing it was just a timing throw. But, I feel like he had a moment with that last drive to really cement himself as like a free agent that potentially could get picked up as a starter. And like he still had that gene to be able to win these clutch games. and he didn't. And you got to make that throw on fourth down. It's as simple as that. And he didn't. And the rest of this roster, I would say Robinson had his best game without Cup or Puka on the field out of this entire year. So credit to him. He was getting open. He was catching contested balls. Just really good stuff by him for the most part. A little bit more mixed by Tutu. What's your thoughts on kind of Tutu's game? He had some good moments. He had some bad moments. Almost had a fumble.
Yeah, I mean, so he had 5 receptions on 8 targets. Obviously, the one was very close to a fumble. I mean, it was a really good punch out ball that he did. And again, I think the two things that we know that Tutu has the hands to catch the ball, and he also has the speed to break out and to go down for the long catches. The one area that we've always said is kind of his size and his strength. And again, I think that punch ball comes into effect where, does he have the strength? If he holds it double handed, yeah, but he hit it at just the right point. Obviously, it was an incomplete pass, but he smashed it out right at the point of as he was turning, and so he wasn't able to get his other hand over top of it. Again, I don't think it was a bad performance by Tutu. I still think that he is limited. They limit him too much. I would still like to see him more used and targeted down the field, and see how things go, because I think he has the ability to make it, and I still think he's underutilized.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where they kind of go with him in the off season, if they re-sign him or not. I don't think he's going to be back with the team personally. I just think he'll probably go somewhere else where he thinks he can get a little bit more playing time and a little bit more money, and see if someone takes a kind of waiver on him, so to say, with a second contract.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on what the contract situation looks like. I mean, if he's able to stay as a Ram kind of on the cheap end, then maybe that's something that we should consider. Because again, I still think he's a deep threat. But if Whittington decides, if Whittington kind of fills in that role, I could definitely see that going that route.
I actually think we could see Whittington overtake Cup in snaps next year.
I think it would be really
trend
interesting to
continue.
see. I think it would be really interesting to see somebody like Puka Nacua, Jordan Whittington, and Cooper Kupp on the field, and seeing what kind of threat that can be. I mean, we've seen it down the road. I mean, you look at the Seahawks, for example, and you have Smith Jigma,
Jason.
yeah, and then DJ Metcalf, and then you also have Tyler Lockett, who's a veteran on that team.
DK.
And they're able. Yeah. DK Metcalf. What did I say?
DJ.
Oh, whatever. DK Metcalf, and then Tyler Lockett as that veteran player. And I feel like that's fine. I feel like, I know a lot of people want to get, think that maybe we should move on from Kupp, but I come back to, I think you're losing so much more than just a receiver. You're losing a coach, you're losing, someone who puts in the work day in and day out, who watches film, who's able to work with the quarterback, and able to, maybe create the future Cooper Kupps, like similar to what Puka Nacua did. Not saying, Puka Nacua did everything because he is awesome, but he also learned a lot, and he studies Cooper Kupp. And there are a lot of teams like that you have one or two receivers, and then you also have that veteran presence. And I feel like if you get rid of that veteran presence, I don't know if your offense is going to be as explosive.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation whether or not they ask him to rework that contract. I feel like the production doesn't match the contract right now. So we'll kind of see. I don't know if the staff also, like, if that's more like a fan thing where we think he's kind of falling off, if the staff agrees with that, or we'll definitely see a little bit more in the playoff game and in the potential like off season and what direction they want to go there. But Whittington looking good. Also, someone who came back and did look good though, Zach, was Higbee. Higbee had himself a decent game, got a touchdown, a few good long receptions. I'm kind of surprised they didn't go towards his way on like any of the last drive like passes, or at least in the red zone, because like he got him all the way down there, and then you just stopped throwing to him, and so that was an interesting choice there.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the coverage on those plays to see if he was either more in the pass protection game or what on why he wasn't targeted in those areas. But he did have he had a great game. He got another touchdown, so
Hmm.
that's two touchdowns that he's had so far as being back. Um, you know, I don't know. Maybe I was a little bit more surprised that they played him more than they did. But you know, I think it was good for him to come back and good for him to play and get more reps and things like that so that he's more ready for the playoffs because I think they're going to need him.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna need them, and I felt like the entire year, like our red zone woes, we're gonna have to fix that in the offseason, Zach. And I really hope Higby at least helps band-aid that a little bit in the red zone, having another tight end kind of big target, because Stafford does like his big targets that he can kind of highball. And we don't like Robinson's done it kind of sometimes, but we don't have that guy who's like big, physical, can jump up tall. Like I guess Puka's the closest thing. So hopefully we can kind of get
Hey,
that in there.
Tutu had some hops out there today. I mean, he caught a high one from Jimmy G. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving Tutu some more props here.
Wide open. So yeah, and Jimmy G wasn't perfectly accurate. Talking about one of the best performances of the year by this player, Joshua Carty. We highlighted when he had his struggles, but this was by far his best game as a Ram, hitting 250 plus yarders. And
55 or 57 and a 58. Not just 50
yes,
plus. 57 and a
yeah.
58.
And you know what was the sad thing, Zach, was I was less nervous about those kicks than the 20-yarder that he did. I was more nervous of like no lie. I was more nervous during his extra points than the 20-yarder. Because most of the stuff with kickers it's mostly mental outside of bad like snap or hold. But that rarely happens. And just wanted to say, like, give him credit. Like I thought it's always risky going rookie kicker, and you have to grow with them, and you have to be patient. We said this from like the outset that they were gonna be patient with them, and he definitely kind of almost gave them the third seed. He wasn't the reason they lost. He gave them all the opportunity to win that game at the end with the final drive. So credit to him, and if they make that 2-point conversion, we maybe have a chance at a field goal at the end of fourth OT.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, good for Josh Riccardi again. I think getting past this rookie year, I think he's going to be a really good kicker for us. Four field
Mm-hmm.
goals made, two of them plus 55. So super excited to see super excited to see his career go up and up.
Yep. Right now it is 7-3 Lions leading. So in the second quarter is almost over. So kind of low scoring game there by both the Vikings and Lions. You ready to go into our grades? You got anything else to talk about with this week 18 game? I mean,
No, I think we've kind of summed it up a little bit. Yeah, I think the team played well. I mean, obviously resting, trying to not play too crazy to kind of keep that momentum going for the playoffs.
yep. So next week we are on Monday Night Football against either the Lions or Vikings, and that should be interesting either way. Either second time we play both teams, and we'll see if Stafford can break some break some souls, be a soul crusher again. But this concludes week 18 of the regular NFL season for the Rams. So we're going to do some season grades for the offense and kind of give you guys our thoughts on their Zach, starting off, we're going to do QBs. Matthew Stafford, kind of roller coaster season. I would say good season, not his best. How are you feeling with grading Matthew Stafford through 17?
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting because again, you look at the schedule and you look kind of what he's done, and they start off 1-4, pretty much just because of all the injuries that they had. They had offensive line injuries, they had running back they had wide receiving injuries, and it doesn't help the cause for him. And so you kind of look at this, and then you kind of look at the last few games. I mean, like, they had kind of some offensive sluggishness against San Francisco, even against New York and Arizona. So, I think I would have to probably give him probably a B minus, just because of lack of consistency. Yeah, I mean, you look at Matthew Stafford, he's had, 3,762 yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and then so averaging a QBR of 64.9. And so again, not the worst in the world. I think he's still definitely a top 10 quarterback when he has all the pieces together. But if you miss one or two pieces, I think it really starts to downgrade a little bit. But I think he's trying to do everything he can to win these games. He has the mentality, the toughness, the physicality to do it. I still think that out of all the quarterbacks in the league, I still would want him to lead this Rams offense, because I think he does have the mentality to get it done, and he doesn't care if he makes a mistake. He's just going to keep on trying harder and harder.
Yeah, I would definitely say a B. I feel like he's a gunslinger. We have had issues most of the year with O-line just not being healthy, not keeping the retention, or having constant rotation at the O-line position. So like really, really tough, kind of tough situation for Stafford there. And I felt like he played better during those types of games than when everyone started getting healthy. And it felt like we got in an offensive funk. And that's kind of where my grade sags. I do think for the majority of the season, how well he played during those bad games and keeping us in them and being able to win some of these tougher games is why I give him a B. You can't say he's been an A. You can't say he's been A plus. I feel like there have been moments where he didn't clutch up in some of these tougher games, especially early on in the season, even if the situation wasn't great. And you got to be able to elevate a not great roster sometimes, and he didn't. So for average, that's going to be around B. We're going to round up. You got B minus, I got B, so that'll be rounded up to a B.
And I think that's valid. I mean, you look at two of the games in particular. I mean, you look at them beating the Bills and you look at them beating the Vikings. I mean, a lot of that was because of Stafford. You look at the Vikings game, and Matthew Stafford was 23 for 30, 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you go look at the Vikings game, and again, he put up 4 touchdowns in that game. So Stafford can be a clutch player. There's just been some inconsistencies, but I think in the games that they have faltered, it's mostly because he didn't have his normal offensive line, or he didn't have Puka, or he didn't have Cooper Kupp. Now going into this next, going into the playoffs, he has everybody. There aren't going to be excuses anymore to hide behind. It's either going to be execution or something. Something has to give. And I think Stafford is going to be able to take this and move on. So I think a B is a good point for him. and for the season.
It would have been hard to do better with the situation we went through outside of like he could have maybe got a B plus if let's say probably after the Patriots game when we had most of the starters healthy, like we go on an offensive tear, like maybe he could have got a B plus. The situation was what it was, and yeah, Dan, I I feel like some people want Detroit, some people want the Vikings. Both of them can be good. You can't really pick. Same thing with like Washington. Some people are like Washington's gonna be easy. I'm like, I've had Jane Daniels on my dynasty team, and he is frankly one of the best QBs I've ever watched as like a first year QB. He is amazingly good, and when he gets a really good supporting cast, Washington's can be very dangerous. So be careful for what you wish for. Anyone who faces Washington, because at any time he can take over the game. He's better than Lamar, I would say. He's better throwing. He has the same like he's not as good as rushing, but I feel like Washington's going to be scary if you face them. And Vikings, they have a better defense than Detroit, but Detroit has a better offense. So it's kind of like pick your poison there. So some people say Vikings are better matchup. We'll kind of see. Kyron Williams, Zach, what's your grade and thoughts on Kyron Williams, third leading rusher in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely gets. I mean, I would say an A minus. The only reason why he doesn't get an A or an A plus is just because of the lack of explosiveness. I think I want to see more plus 10 yards from him. But again, how can you ask for somebody more? I mean, he has 316 carries, third in the league. Just shy of 1,300 yards, third in the league. 14 touchdowns, tied for third in the league. He is an elite. He is a really good, really elite running back, and I feel like he is undervalued a lot. And so I would say A minus. I think he's good at pass blocking. He protects Stafford. I mean, if you watch the last time he was on, like they mic'd him up for the game, like he came out and said, he's like, I'm protecting Stafford the best I like. You're not going to get past Kyron Williams. If he's going on one-on-one, he's going to protect him. It's going to be somebody else who's failing if there's a sack on Kyron
Williams. No, I agree. I would give him an A. I feel like his pass blocking is elite. His ability to run through people is elite. His pass catching has gone slightly better this year. And like you said, the only negative for him has been he doesn't have explosive 20-plus yard runs. And the fact that he's third in the league in rushing and he doesn't have those explosive kind of rushes is a testament to how, like, just consistent he is. He's a consistent worker, consistently. Our offense, when he came out, it was a lot different and got a lot worse. That's why we had to go out and get Corum.
So he has only just another stat is that he has been targeted 40 times and he has caught 34 of those 40 times.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 misses in the entire season.
If I remember, some of those misses too were just like bad, like thrown in dirt or like I don't even think a lot of them were straight up drops. I can only remember like 2 or 3 times where he just straight up dropped the ball when he shouldn't have. But yeah, I give him A. That would make our average A. Yeah, man, Zach, you're a tough grader. So
okay.
Average.
This is weird. I feel like I'm usually the sunny side up.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We're just starting out here in the grading with all the first stringers. Ooh, this one's gonna be a little bit harder for you. We're moving to. I'll let you decide. Do you want to do wide receiver or O line?
We'll go wide receiver. Next. Let's go ahead.
Wide receiver. That's what I was thinking. Let's start out with the spicier one, Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I mean, What are you going to say about Cooper Kupp? I mean, I still think he is still up there as part of the upper tier of running backs. Or running backs, wide receivers? Would I put him up in the back to the elite tier? Probably. He's one. He's the tier below elite, just because it has been a rougher season for him. Maybe that is to do with the injury that he had. Uh, Maybe we'll continue to see. We'll see how the playoffs go. I mean, obviously, when he was back, I mean, he hasn't, for being out those games. He was in for 12 games, 67 reception yards, 710 yards that he's had, 6 touchdowns. Uh, not terrible in my opinion. Again, for also missing, those 5 games. So I think that's pretty good. I don't know. I'm never going to dog Cooper Kupp because again, I think he brings more in the blocking game for the run block, for protection, things like that. I don't know. I'm more sunny side up with Cooper Kupp, so I'm going to give him a B. Because again, I don't think it's all on him. I don't think he's targeted as often. And then, I still think people think he's more of a threat. And so I think that there's more double coverage on him.
Yeah, Maria, let's definitely kick some butt in the playoffs. And thank you, Dan, for commenting earlier. Guys, if you're listening to us live, feel free, drop your thoughts about our grades, your grades, what you guys think about the game and the matchup potentially in the playoff. Definitely love to hear that stuff and appreciate you guys when you tune in. I agree with you. A B kind of sums up Cooper Kupp season. I feel like it's hard to judge because you feel like he was hurt half the season and maybe he's not fully injured. That's one of those things like they don't really tell you that people are banged up and he's having like issues separating. So yeah, it's been kind of mid-season for Kupp. He's come up big in some games, especially the Bills game. But Zach, it's going to be something where we're going to need more in this wide receiver core. Even with Whittington probably ascending, with Tutu leaving.
We don't know if Tutu's leaving. Let's be honest. We don't know if he's leaving.
Well, we're going to have to add someone, whether that's Tutu or someone else. We're going to have to add someone to this wide receiver core. So I feel like we need upgrades from Robinson or Tutu. We need something a little bit more. Because if you look at the league, all the best teams have killer wide receiver trios. And, hopefully Whittington keeps on blossoming into a potential wide receiver too. But, Kupp is getting up there in age, and if he's not getting the separation, we're going to start losing games because of it, and you just got to think about that. So, your favorite wide receiver, DeMarcus Robinson. How would you grade Mr. Robinson this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a tale of two halves. I mean, if you look at the first half of the season compared to the second half of the season, I definitely feel like things have shifted. Obviously with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua being out in the first half, he had a lot more targets. He had a lot more yards during that time. They came back. He basically kind of went non-existent. He was the kind of their touchdown guy for that middle tier area. But then last 4 or 5 weeks, we haven't really seen a lot of him in the touchdown area or in the target area. So really, probably, I'm also going to give him the benefit of having his lucky playoff berth attached to him. So I'm probably going to have to give him. Oh, this is such a tough one, but probably a C plus. If you average kind of the B plus he was having in the beginning to kind of the C minus he's kind of had over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I probably would merge my two grades together. And what did I say? C plus.
Yeah,
probably where I would put him.
Me and you are on the same wavelength. Definitely a C plus. I feel like his blocking has been noticeably a little worse, especially in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Not terrible. He's not bad at blocking, but he's not great. That's been an issue. He's, for the most part, outside of week 18 in the last 6-7 weeks, hasn't done a great job separating. Especially because he was not going against top tier DBs anymore. Like Coop and Puka were picking up a lot of that. So I don't understand how he wasn't doing as well. Now he comes up clutch in some plays, and I feel like that's where the plus comes in, because I feel like he's played like a C player, especially when he got highlighted and raised up to wide receiver 1. But in big moments, he does have some critical plays. So he does kind of have a little bit of a clutch gene and potentially could help out in that kind of area. So, yeah, we have an average of C+. So me and you kind of on the same page so far. We'll see if that continues. Our boy, Puka Nakua, how are you going to grade him?
I mean, other than the lack of touchdowns, I mean, he's been excellent. I mean, you look at him, you look at his stats. He missed 6 games, and he was able to secure 79 receptions for 990 yards. What can't this guy do? I mean, obviously he is Stafford's favorite target right now with 106. Again, he only played for 11 weeks, and he has 106 targets. Cooper Kupp was next with 100 targets. Then it dropped significantly down to Robinson. So we clearly know that Puka is, really that kind of elite. I would probably have to give him, probably an A-. Again, I think the only thing he's really lacking is that red zone touchdown field. And again, maybe that's just because of the lack of not playing for 6 games, and maybe he would have had a couple more touchdowns. But again, I think A- is where I would hit. I think he is becoming that really elite wide receiver, and I cannot wait to see this kid's future.
I think it's pretty common sense why he's not getting touchdowns is because he's our only receiving wide, red zone threat.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing: he's making. You would think that also, if he wasn't, I don't know, he's able to get around everywhere else. He just can't get in the end zone.
Yeah, because it gets condensed, and when you get condensed, you get less options, you get less routes, and it makes a difference when you can triple cover a wide receiver and be like, oh no, I don't have to worry about Hunter Long. He's not gonna catch the ball, and then and maybe you put someone on DeMarcus Robinson, but everyone else can't really operate in space and out muscled people, and we didn't have Higbee, so it's we didn't have a lot of other options, and it made it easy for kind of defenses to scheme around Puka when he was on the field. So I think it's a mix of that and not being on the field. I give him an A. A+ is all-star, kind of like last year for Puka. Kind of hard to give him A+ there, but I feel like when he's been on the field, our offense is different, and he's been electric. And on the games where we've been kind of lukewarm, he's been the only player outside of him and Kyron, been the only player giving us sparks of anything. And most of the time, we either fumble or do something silly to get us out of getting a touchdown in the last 5 or 6 weeks. So I think Puka's the real deal, and he's going to be a heck of a wide receiver for the next few years. And so that's an average of A between your A- and my A. So moving to tight end, we are not going to grade Higbee off of 1 game. We will talk about the primary
A+.
Off of 2 games. A+, I guess. Colby Parkinson.
Here's the thing. I'm just going to go down the line, and I'm just going to give this whole tight end group. I'm just going to clump them in together because, again, me telling Hunter Long, Colby, like I could tell them apart. If I looked at them, I could tell who they are. Don't get me wrong. But realistically, this tight end group as a whole, I'm going to give them a C plus. Again, they have been fine as far as when it comes to some blocking goes. They have just been not as a receiving threat. If I'm going to go through their stats here in a minute, so you can give your score if you'd like. But Hunter Long has had 7 receptions this whole entire year. Davis Allen has had 6. Colby Parkinson has had the most of them with 29. So if I had to, probably Parkinson's the only reason why the tight end group is even at a C plus. Because again, in Sean McVay's offense, the tight end has to be an extra weapon. You have the receivers, you have the running back, you have the tight end. Those have to be extra weapons. They have to be able to block, yes, but they also have to be a weapon. And when you have that limited usage of your tight ends in the passing game, it's a C plus. And I'm probably being generous.
There's a reason why Sean McVay in the last 2 drafts back to back has tried to trade up to get a tight end, getting blocked both times by teams not even using their tight ends anymore. But that's a story for a different day. I think he's going to do that again this year. I give him a D plus. I feel like this has been the most underwhelming group, especially for the fact if you look at how much money they make all combined. It is. I never thought I would miss Tyler Higbee as much as I have because he's better blocker than all of them, and he's more explosive pass catching than all of them. And I'd hope maybe you could say that Davis has been a little hurt this year, and maybe that's kind of slowed his growth. I still have some hope for him, but Colby Parkinson, it just hasn't been his year, and he hasn't looked good pass catching or blocking, in my opinion. And I don't want to upset. I know we have some passionate fans about other tight ends in the group. I just feel like this overall tight end group has underwhelmed, and we need to do better if we want to be a lead offensive unit. And I feel like that's been a big weakness between that and the O-line.
Yeah, we're kind of the same thing. It's not that their ability necessarily to block and to help the run game out, but it really is that explosiveness, being able to cause bigger holes, being able to get those extra explosive, the explosive yards. I mean, like you looked at what Tyler Higbee did today, and I don't know. He had five receptions for 46 yards. Like he did something more meaningful than what, unfortunately, what Davis Allen and Hunter Long has been able to do in the receiving game. And so I don't know. I hope that they do try to improve that situation and make that side better.
Yeah. Let's go to the offensive line. We'll start with Rob Havenstein. He hasn't played in last 2 games, so I think he's played 13 weeks, 14 weeks, something like that, because he was out for another week or 2 in the middle of the season, I believe. It's hard to keep track. Our linemen have been in and out so much this year.
Yep. So for me, I mean, obviously, we know what he's missed if he's not on the field. So but you also have to put in some injury perspective. So probably I'll give him a B plus only because of him being injured and the injury stuff. I know injury is not always their fault, but we honestly know what happens when he's not there. So I'm going to give him a B plus.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a consistent grade. Havenstein is one of those underrated right tackles where I don't think he's great. I don't think he's a top 10 tackle, but he's right there at 11 and 12. He's like always been there right at 11, 12 since his first year. And
he's our
has just
vet.
always stayed there. He's
our vet.
He's consistent and like
he survived how many different offensive linemen? I mean, he's been there since St. Louis time. So
yeah, he's a longest tenured Ram now. So definitely, I give him a B plus. B plus. I feel like you noticed very much when he was out, and we almost lost a few games because he was out. So that Jets game was kind of rough. Kevin Dotson,
A plus. Done. Move on.
A plus.
I think he's probably the best offensive lineman that we have on the roster right now.
I would give him an A minus, and just because I feel like his pass blocking is good or great. I would say great. His run blocking has been hit or miss this season. That's the only thing that kind of hesitates me, where I'm like, I feel like our run game has been a little inconsistent, and like the hole's inconsistent for Kyron. Kyron's had to have a lot of like yards after contact this year. So not saying that's all Kevin does. Like he's still good, like great, like a great lineman. It just for me to give higher than like A minus, he has to work on that run blocking a little bit, and I feel like some of that could have been injuries, especially when he got back in the rotation.
Yeah, I just think he's done really well. I mean, you look at his PFF scores, and they're all really well. I just think he's been that consistent. He's just been that consistent player, and that great pickup that we did. From Pittsburgh. I think he's probably, again, like I said, I think he's currently our best offensive lineman that we have. And I think we have great offensive linemen. I think he is a good. Maybe I jumped the gun. Maybe I should just say A, but I love Kevin Dotson. So he's getting a bonus point for me just because he's a cool guy.
Well, he has an average of A for the pod, so that's not a bad grade to kind of end. Do you want to do Jonah Jackson, or he only played 2 games?
Yeah, so let's just go with the current starting offense.
Okay. Bo Limmer, rookie, took a starting spot from Jonah Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting because just of how this all played out. Because again, Steve Avila was going to be the starting center. That was the whole plan in the offseason. Then at the last minute, really, they changed things up. They moved Jonah Jackson to center. Left Steve Avila where he was at his left guard spot, and then injuries happened. Bo Limmer kind of came in, and he just took over the job. There's great dynamic between everybody. Stafford's giving him praise as a rookie. A lot of times the center kind of, does a lot of the coverage and understands things. He understands the run coverage a lot more than he did going into the season. I think he definitely should get a B plus in this aspect. He's had a few issues. There's been a couple games where he's been a little off. But for the most part, he is a steady, consistent part to this offensive lineman. So again, I'll probably give him a B plus. Just being a rookie, being able to take over a position like that, and being able to get pretty comfortable after so many injuries that we had in the first
half. Yeah, you're on the same page with me. I feel like he has been not fully dominant, but he's been a good center. He did get some kind of penalty prone a little bit in a few games in big spots that kind of costed the Rams. But for the most part, like you expect that from rookies, you're going to have growing pain. And for what he's done, like he wasn't Steve Avila good in his first year, but he was good. And for someone coming from such a low draft position, like we were happy when he got drafted. We were like, oh, he could be a good project, and he's turned out to be a lot better than that. That's as much as you can ask for from a guy of his draft position. So really good job, B plus. Like, been a good season. Hopefully he can continue to grow as he's grown over like season so far. Let's talk about Steve Avila. Talking about him.
Yeah, I don't think he. I think he had a better season last year than he did this year. I still think he's a great offensive lineman. I still think he has a lot to put into this game. I think again the injury at the beginning did kind of set back
Yeah.
a bit of him. So I'm probably going to go. I'm probably going to go with a B minus. As far as that goes. I mean, if you look at PFF, which I know PFF isn't everything, his pass blocking was 49.6. His run blocking was better at 69.6. But that's just where I'm probably putting it.
Yeah, I feel like it was a mix. I'll give him a B. I feel like it's been a mix of the injury and having the swap positions was probably a lot on him. And I feel like the more and more he's been settling back into left guard, you've seen that more like, previous like really great play that he had in his rookie year. So yeah, I think a B. So I feel like he's had a decent or good season. Just like being moved around, like that's a lot to go through as an O lineman. So you can kind of see how like he took a few steps back and being injured probably didn't help. Alert Jackson.
I think another guy that I really do like, and I like that he is he's on the team. I do think that I think that he's one of those players that when he's off the field, you definitely notice that he's on there. I'm going to give him a B plus. I think he was kind of penalty heavy for a little bit there, but for the most part, his pass blocking has been above average. His run blocking has been above average. So I think I'm going to B plus. So I think that's where I would put it.
Yeah, I would give him a B. I feel like he had my only problem was he had a few games where like he was just getting beat, but outside of that, like he's been good to really good. He does kind of like a lot. It's one of those things where he's like one of those linemen that like gets pushed up into the QB, but he doesn't give up the sack. So he kind of gives up pressures, but doesn't gives up sacks, which isn't terrible, but it's also not good. You don't want that. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. Is he a free agent this year? I don't know if he's up for a contract or not.
I don't think so, but I would have to go and look.
Maybe he's like a tendered free agent or something, like a restricted free agent. But we'll kind of see with that. But yeah, I would say B. So that would be average of B plus, rounding up. Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of your guys' LA Rams offensive grades. So for the most part, a little bit more positive than I thought going in. It looks like the problem is our starting line hasn't been there the entire season. So like you could also look at that as being like that chunk of the part of the offense wasn't even on the field for those games. And then, yeah, any response to our rankings or grades?
He is a free agent as of 2025, a UFA.
Mm-hmm.
So someone I think that we definitely need to make sure that we sign to more of a long-term deal.
We will have money, and I'll be interested to see how much he gets. I don't think he's going to be a top tackle free agent, but I would have to look at that list and kind of see. But if we get him back, I won't be upset. Like, that's one of those players that I feel like he could be a decent building block. Yeah, Dan, I definitely think that's a valid point. Like bring him back, but it also counts for what amount of money. We're gonna be paying Jonah Jackson like what 18 mil, 20 mil. You can't pay two linemen that end up on the bench like 20 mil. You just can't do that. So
No, but you
uh,
got to play somebody. You got to pay your offensive line, and your left tackle is probably one of your most, is obviously your most helpful spot. So again, if we're going to keep Stafford, I think you're going to want a consistency, and I think you're going to want to bring in Alaric again.
yeah, hopefully the price is good there. Anything else? There, Zach. Anyone you want to
No, I
talk
mean some
about?
shout outs that we can just say. I mean, I think Whittington,
Mhm.
obviously, he's coming into his own. Over the last several weeks, he's been explosive in the special games
Yep.
area. He played really well tonight. I definitely think he has some talent on that end. As far as the rest of the team goes, I think Blake Corum kind of unfortunate that he did, um, hurt himself tonight, but I do think that he does have a future here in the Rams. Obviously, an arm is not something that you really want to have broken, but it's honestly better than um, you know teared stuff in your legs. Um,
Yeah. Also, I would add Xavier Smith kind of to that list of like mentions. Xavier Smith having some good returns, some moments. I would say just having stability in the return spot has been additional positive for this team because we all remember going through the kind of returner carousel, Zach, where like we kept on having people who were like fumbling and just not able, and we were like nervous every punt and kick return. And I think Xavier Smith and Whittington both have done great in kind of that fill in position.
yeah,
Anyone
sorry, I dropped
else?
out there for a second. No, I don't know where I dropped off at. I think, like I said, I think I said Blake Corum. I think he's had,
Yeah.
again, terrible that he obviously had the broken arm. I think a broken arm is better than um, anything you could lose in your legs. So I think that won't stop him from being a force in the future. Um, but I'm hyped up on this team. I think this team has a bright future, and it's not done yet. We still got playoffs to go
We do have some football left. And Zach, you may say, we ain't done yet.
we ain't done yet. We got a lot of
Ain't done
juice.
yet.
We got a lot of juice. Right now we're still looking at a tight game between the Detroit and Minnesota. What is it? 10-6 in the third.
Oh,
So
yes, the offensive fireworks of 6-10 that everyone was expecting from the two top NFC teams. And
yep.
someone's going to lose that game. And we're going to face them. And it'll be kind of interesting dynamic, Zach, because both teams are trying their best to win that game. And going into our game, uh, it'll be an interesting headspace because you're going to have a 14 win team on the road, and you can say they're going to be angry, but they're going to would have gone through a grueling game. It seems like it's a defensive struggle, and I don't think the Rams are going to lay down easy against how many ever wins that team has.
Yeah. But luckily, we're hopefully going to talk about that in our preview episode of the
Yes.
wild card game. So I think for this week, we are going to wrap everything up. Thank you for everyone who joined in live. It was great to talk with you all in the chat and kind of have this live conversation. You can find us live, youtube.com/@eastcoastrams. Please like and subscribe. Really appreciate everyone who does that. If you don't find us there, you can find us on any other podcast app, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, we will be there. Please follow us on all social medias. You can follow us on X at East Coast Rams, Threads, and Twitter at East Coast Rams Pod. You can find us on Blue Sky by searching for East Coast Rams. I am Zach. This is Ashton, and we will see you guys next time.